But right now, it's great to catch up with an old friend, someone, of course, that we think of only from his time helping the Baltimore Ravens become Super Bowl champions. We don't think at all about his time as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. We pretend that never happened, frankly. But now he's dipping his toe a little bit further into the media waters. He's been doing some TV the last few years, some various things. He's got a new show with a bunch of really smart football minds, including Trey Wingo. It's called Inside Football. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Coach Marvin Lewis, who is with us once again here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good morning. How's everybody there?
Everybody is great, man. We'd like the Orioles to be better, but other than that, we're all right. Marvin, Inside Football, Tom, this is quite the combination of minds that you guys have put together for this. Tell me about this project, why it's something that was interesting to you.
Well, it was. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head is being involved with Trey Wingo. I mean, he's so excellent at what he does. I've known Chris Carter for a long, long time. I've gotten to know Brian Urlacher, since he retired. I actually coached at New Mexico a little before Brian was there, but got to know him. And then Steve Keim, who was the GM here in Arizona. So I've known when he kind of came up through the scouting ranks and so forth. But it's been a lot of fun for us to talk football, to hear different points of view, and which is really cool. And Trey does a good job of he's like the point guard,
Well, Marvin, I tell you what stood out to me is that, like what you just listed, right? Defensive Hall of Famer, offensive Hall of Famer, a longtime successful coach, and it feels like it was purposeful to get like every possible perspective for every conversation that can come up.
Yeah, it really was. They did a good job of putting it together like that, and the addition of Brian kind of gave us the defensive point of view from obviously a Hall of Fame player and a great player, but also a really good person. And so that's been fun. And I think it also has given us really good access, I think, because the relationships everybody has within the National Football League.
I was going to say, is there anyone in the league that one of you wouldn't have a connection with somehow?
No, it was funny because the producer asked the other day, is anybody, we want to do somebody in the AFC North, I think, but I don't know if we're going to end up doing it. But how about anybody? I said, well, I think I can go to Cincinnati or Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So,
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it was pretty cool to, being with Trey, everybody recognizes him. And, I used to have some interactions with him when he was at ESPN and, sit down and do their stuff. But he's really good at what he does.
Yeah, he's incredible. Trey's been a long time a friend of ours, too, so I love this. This is an incredible combination. The show is available as part of the Wingo Network. We're going to link it up on our Twitter account for you guys to be able to check it out, Inside Football with Coach Marvin Lewis. Coach, you mentioned, obviously, you guys were talking about doing the AFC North. I feel like it's ironic because we're talking about all of your former teams, but like
yeah.
the Ravens have been maybe the kings of the North for a prolonged period of time. The Steelers end up winning the division last year, and of course, the Bengals are the Bengals, and that is Joe Burrow. And if he's healthy, we know they can score 45 points a game. Who should be like how? When you look at this division, whose division is it to win going into the year?
Well, I think obviously I think kind of Baltimore. Between Baltimore and Cincinnati, it's a matter of who can play defense. I think both teams, if their quarterbacks are back and healthy, will be productive on offense. And but it's a matter of who can play enough defense to slow the other offense down. With Cincinnati, they've added some good pieces on defense to do that, and so. It makes a difference. Baltimore brings over, the rusher from Cincinnati, and so I think every team tried to bolster, what they have, and new coach there and Jesse Minter there with the Ravens and his staff. So it'll be interesting. I think, the oh gosh, well, I can't remember, Anthony Weaver, who played for the Ravens and has had great
Yeah.
experience as a coach, both in Houston and the coordinator in Miami. He comes back to Baltimore excited to get the defense up and rolling.
You referenced like Jesse Minter. I think one of the conversations we're trying to have, coach, is like, can it just be that like a coach can just sprinkle pixie dust and fix something? Because like we saw before he arrived with the Chargers, that was not a good defense. He got there and very quickly they were one of the best defenses in football. And I think a lot of people, not that the Seahawks were ever as bad defensively, but the impact of Mike McDonald in Seattle has been unquestionable. Like, is it possible? Hendrickson, to your point, adding him, it's massive, and the Ravens have needed that type of edge rusher since Terrell Suggs. But it is a coach like that capable of just coming in and saying, "Hey, it's largely the same pieces, but I can fix this."
Well, yeah, that's gonna be his challenge. But what he's got to be able to do is deal with the personalities throughout. Now on both sides of the football, all three phases, and being able to handle that. But backing it up just a bit, from what I've known Jesse since he was kind of coming up through. I knew his father, Rick,
Yeah.
and his dad was the head coach at UC when I went to Cincinnati, and who's a fine football coach. But fundamental, and that's what he learned from Mike McDonald, and that's what he was able to bring, to both when he went to Michigan with Jim, and then later on to the Chargers with Jim, to be able to bring the discipline of fundamentals and so forth. They don't want to be flashy, but they want to put a great fundamental product out there and then build upon that as you go. And so they really put together a strong foundation, which helps you through the rough parts of the season.
Marvin Lewis is with us here on GCR. Inside Football is his new show with the Wingo Network. Marvin, it's interesting because as we talk about Jesse Minter and what we've seen from early on and talking to everyone who's been around him, there's so much comparison to Mike McDonald, but not just because of where they've been and the side of the ball they've coached, but also their personality and their style. And as you're talking about dealing with the personalities, it's funny because we describe it as almost like a new school type of coaching mentality, but it's kind of similar to what I think of when I think of Marvin Lewis, right? Like, and not to say you were never intense, but like that I don't have to be in your face. I don't have to just be yelling for the sake of yelling, and I'm a little bit more willing to meet you where you are. How much do you feel like that style? We heard Marlon Humphrey talking about, how different it was the other day. How much do you feel like that style is imperative for coaching these types of players now in 2026?
Well, there's been a shift. The whole transfer rule in college and all that stuff was put in, so these guys come in, and they're not as committed and dedicated as they once were, and now they've changed it, tightened it up a little bit. But if you looked at somebody cross-eyed, they're gonna go across the street. Now you obviously can't do that in pro sports.
Right.
But,
you can't transfer.
Somewhat,
you can't hop in the portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've been coddled a little bit. And so you got to be able to, you do have to be able to reach them. And that's the magnitude or the ability, the value of a coach is being able to reach inside the hard to reach and pull the best out of them. And, it takes skill, it takes time, patience. And then you got to put a staff together that has some of that quality. Some are great at X and O's. Some are great on the field. Some can do it all, and some can reach inside and pull the hard to reach, pull them further, pull them together and help them understand the value of being successful on a team is bigger than them being successful individually.
You have told us stories about, at least briefly, whether having to see the beginning of the Lamar Jackson career. Now this is obviously this is your world, right?
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
what do you make of it, Mark? Like he was number 69 on the NFL Top 100 this year. And that that's a player vote, and so we should maybe say, hey, well, it's their opinion. But like, what do you make of the continued questions that there are about Lamar Jackson, who is, we already know, a future Hall of Famer and one of the most dynamic players that's ever played the game?
Yeah, it is. He because of, I guess, the success that he had as a young player, and basically taking over for Joe mid-season, and I happened to be the it's not a beneficiary. I wasn't a beneficiary of that Sunday. Just like I wasn't of Joe's first game as a starter back in '08. So I've seen it all. But I just think that's the expectations of the Ravens fans, not just in Baltimore, but across the country. That, the only thing he hasn't done is get in the Super Bowl and win it. And so that's the thing that I think, for Lamar, he's just you got to be able to get that done. And that's what his quest is, and every time I see him speak about it now, I think he understands that, the expectations, it's different than if you're the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, let's call a spade, as they say it, but it is just different expectations as you go throughout the National Football League. And he's played at such a high level, and that's the only thing he's got to achieve. I mean, it's no different than Josh Allen in Buffalo. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
no doubt, they're both, and it's intense, right? Like, I got to imagine that weight is significant.
It is. It's intense, and Joe Burrow has been to the Super Bowl, so he gets a little bit of a pass. But he's when he's right, he's unbelievable. But when he's injured, it's hard for them to win, and that's that's part of life in the National Football League. Is your quarterback. He's the leader of your football team, and he also has to produce.
Marvin, you guys did the Rams already, and you did the
yes.
NFC West. I wonder what you make of, and I don't think it's that we're crowning them as much as we are. I don't remember there being a year where maybe post, like, the Brady Patriots, we have given such a benefit, such a they're the team. They are sort of head and shoulders above everyone else. Are we going too far with the way that we're talking about the Rams and how loaded they are, and obviously our expectation that Aaron Donald's going to be there too?
They make the huge trade, and they get the guy who's been if not the MVP once, twice, I don't know how many times, but I mean, he puts it out there every Sunday and produces. Your quarterback, it comes back. They're not sure after the season what's going to happen with Matthew Stafford. He comes back. And they have a football team that really was so competitive and won close football games. And literally, they were the only people to put points up on Seattle on offense. And so there's just so much there to build upon, because they're still a young football team other than the quarterback position. And, I think they do. Les Snead and Sean together have done such a great job of building the roster and finding guys, when they've traded draft picks, now they're finding guys 4th, 5th, 6th round that become productive starters for them. And so they have a roster that's deep. And then you got that guy, hanging out there, Aaron Donald, working out with the guys on their days off.
Yep.
So, and the point that Sean made, he's only coming back if he feels like he can be the guy that he was when he left, or close to that. And that's a decision that, he's going to make, and they're going to welcome him with open arms. And now, do you slide the line over to Myles Garrett all the time, or do you got to then leave this other guy one-on-one inside? Come on, you can design some stuff with that. that's the excitement of it. And I will say the other thing that impressed me about being there is we go out for walkthrough, and everybody's dressed the same.
Huh.
There was no individualization. Everybody was dressed the same. More than 2/3 of them had their cleats on, even though they're walking through. To me, as being a head coach, that's what you want for your football team.
They're bought in. Yeah.
Yes. Everybody is bought in. And so the details are being taken care of right now, and to me, that makes a difference.
Let me wrap with this, Marvin, because this is a really good thought that a listener named Dave just messaged me. He said, and maybe the answer is just results, but like we are looking at a new coaching staff in Baltimore, and not just Jesse Minter being a new head coach, but like Declan Doyle being a new offensive coordinator who's never called plays for it before. Besides just results, are there other things that we can watch for that might tell us about how they're adjusting to these roles, how, maybe what the buy-in is? Are there other things other than wins and losses that can tell us about how prepared these guys are for this first opportunity in their new assignments?
Yeah, I think the details of the football team, taking care of the football, the execution up front offensively, elimination of penalties. I think defensive tackling, not allowing explosive plays, winning early downs and then winning on third down, So, yeah, there's some things that they're going to want to build upon as they go into things. There's no question about it. Lamar's had a few coaches and coordinators, and his ability to come together and those guys merge together to be able to make him keep him being a productive player, I think is really important, because he's had a number of different coordinators, since he's started his, starting in 2018. Yeah. So I think all that's really important, that, I was that first-time play caller too at one point. You're like,
it worked out okay.
Oh my gosh! I took my lumps now. Let me tell you now.
Sure.
I mean, we literally put Jacksonville in the playoffs.
I remember. Trust me, I remember.
Because those guys were playing down to their knees. After the game, we had nothing left. Yeah. We were spent.
The circumstances were a little bit different at that point, though.
Yeah, but we built a foundation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We built a foundation, and we continued to add to that foundation by adding Rod Woodson the next year, by adding Tony Siragusa, Mike McCreary,
yep.
And then obviously the draft picks we added throughout time. But, even the Super Bowl year on offense, okay, we add Sam Gash and, the big tight end from New England.
Ben Coates.
And Ben Coates, and I remember telling Ozzie, the defense got better today because we got some first down makers on the other side of the ball.
That's a great thought. Wow.
And that's what it takes, but yeah, I mean, we were that's what I said, me and Ozzie laugh about it now, but we were the Zenith. We came out of the ashes, man.
Did you ever at that point? The crazy thought is, like, in the modern NFL, Marvin, I don't know if you would have been around by 2001, right? Like,
I got let go like everybody else, but Brian couldn't find anybody to replace me. So I left.
Stuck with you.
He tried.
Worked out really well.
He tried, because it was funny, because everybody that he had on his list would talk to me, say, hey, if you want to stay there, then don't take another job, because I was offered a couple other jobs and I turned down. But if you want to stay, a couple of the coaches that he was talking about said, hey, if I don't get this job, then I'm going to do this. So if you want to stay, just be patient.
Man, the best thing that ever happened to Brian, the best thing that ever happened to the Ravens is that it worked out.
Well, I appreciate Brian, more than I can ever talk about, because he never one day made me feel bad for what had gone on in the past. Man. You know what I mean? To be a holdover coach can be a tough situation. Like, when somebody comes in and says, what the hell? What's this for? Why are they doing it this way? Brian never did that. He was completely 100% supportive. And literally, he was the one who pushed that defense over the hill. When he came in one day and said we would talk on Monday night. He would come in my office and we'd sit down and talk. We'd talk Tuesday about the game plan after we got finished on defense. He would come in and I would go through what was new or different. And he said, I want to talk to the defense tomorrow morning. And he spoke to the defense and he explained to them how he had prepared to coach against them the year before when he was with the Vikings and what they thought that, how we played, and that sooner or later somebody would make a mistake and they would take advantage of it. And he literally said, you guys can keep sending 3 or 4 of you to the Pro Bowl and you play like individuals, or you can start playing like a defensive football team and we'll win a lot of games. And that was the catalyst, literally. Just hearing it from another voice other than myself, made a huge difference to those guys. Yes. And then the leadership of Rod Woodson and Ray Lewis, Rob Burnett, and those guys up front took over. And that was the difference.
I don't think I've ever heard that story before. All the years that we've talked, I don't know that I've ever heard that story before. That's awesome, Coach.
Yeah.
Marvin Lewis, Inside Football, again, part of the Wingo Network, an incredible cast on that show. Would love to chat again as we get into the season. Always appreciate you, Coach. Thank you for spending the time with us today.
You're very welcome, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Marvin Lewis with us here on GCR. How about that?